Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today on my channel, I have author K.F. Johnson. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good considering I'm on quarantine. I'm good. How are you?
Uh, Fine. Okay, today we're talking about all about your books. So
Yay.
I'm going to let you have the floor to talk about all of your books, and then
Okay.
we'll ask some questions.
Okay.
All right, take it away.
All right. Well, I am a romantic suspense writer. Basically, I write about relationships, good relationships going bad. And so a lot of times, there is a little murder in there. There's a little sex in there. And, in between that is a little bit of love. So it's romantic suspense. I have 5 books currently out. Two are series or complete series. And then I have one series that I am about to end. I'm currently writing the sequel to that. So I have Behind Closed Doors, which was my very first book that I ever published, which is about siblings that come from an affluent family, but their father was an abusive parent, abusive to the kids, abusive to his wife. And then in adulthood, it's about the things that happen, how these kids were affected by that, what type of things they end up doing, and types of things that they take from their father. And when he mysteriously dies at their mother's home, about all the family skeletons that have fallen out the closet and the consequences of their actions. Then I have the sequel to that, which is called Liar's Ball. And I write it in the first person. So there's 2, the brother and sister on the first book cover, and 3 on the third. And that's where you find out about a mystery person that they discovered in the initial book. And so that person also has a voice. And basically it's just the siblings, with taking on what happened in the first book. My next series is When I'm Bad, I'm Better. And that is about 4 cousins who are good girls on the surface, but they all have these seedy pasts, and it's about the things they're willing to do to keep those things from surfacing. And then there's a sequel to that. Ooh, my phone's just ringing right off. Excuse me. And then there's a sequel to that, and that's basically a follow-up on the things that happened in the first book, and everyone in that book may not come out alive. And the beginning of a new series that I started is What I Do for Love, which is about a wife who finds out that her husband cheated on her. And so she kills him and she frames the side chick. And now she's looking for new love. And anybody that gets in the way of that, may find themselves 6 feet under. And that's the book that I'm working on the sequel for now, What I Do for Love 2. And that was a Reader's Choice. It was nominated for a Reader's Choice Award in 2017. And I would say that's probably my biggest successful book to date.
Okay. You say you want to read a portion of
Yes.
your books?
I have an excerpt, which is from What I Do for Love, and it's pretty short. All right. The man I considered to be my best friend, the man I shared my love, secrets, and bed with, was willing to trade me in for frequent sex with a random heifer at work who hadn't sacrificed or suffered through anything with him before. What hurt the most is that despite knowing the hellish treatment I suffered from being the product of my father's infidelity, he'd risked our marriage. I always made it very clear that cheating is the only infraction I'd find unforgivable. I guess he didn't really give a damn, because here he was betraying me in my own bed. Plastic stuck to my naked flesh and crinkled beneath my feet as I wiped sweat from my brow. I'd fully encased myself in black garbage bags from the neck down, with oversized trash can rubber bands securing them in place around my ankles, thighs, wrists, waist, and biceps. Besides my head, only my hands were exposed. I wore 2 coats of surgical gloves on each as a precaution. I'd been swaddled in plastic for nearly 40 minutes while they fornicated in my marital bed, and I prepared to make them pay for it. I was hot as hell, physically and mentally. The squeaking of the floorboards overhead signaled a descent to the first floor, and the cell phone screen I'd been watching them on was now blank, which could only mean they were both coming downstairs. They had a brief, muffled exchange in the foyer that I couldn't decipher from my position in the basement until the digitized voice of my alarm system announced an open front door. Shortly afterwards, his slow footfalls headed back to the second floor. I let out a nervous breath and ran over the details of my plan in my head one more time. The time on the cell phone was 8:41 a.m. I powered it off and dropped it into a box in the corner that was filled with other old phones, clocks, random cords to things that we no longer used. The sweatsuit and underwear I wore was neatly folded on the top of a box by the basement door, with my sneakers, backpack, and keys beside them. I waited 10 more minutes and grabbed both the black 60-gallon garbage bag atop my clothes and the smaller garbage bag beside it. Placing the smaller bag over my head, I positioned the holes I made earlier over my eyes and took a few deep breaths. My skin was so hot that it almost felt like the bags were melting against it. I ascended the steps in twos without worrying about the noise because Michael was upstairs. Plus, he slept like the dead once that Ambien kicked in. I emerged from the basement into my modestly decorated kitchen and seized a 4-inch butcher knife from a drawer in the island. Looking at my reflection in it, I smirked and strolled towards the stairs and the sound of his lawnmower like snoring. I lingered in the doorway to soak in his toned, naked body and reminisce over the love we'd made. Michael was a 6'1" linebacker in college, and although he never went pro, he still maintained a slightly fit and toned physique now at 31. His close-cut fade was starting to grow out, and his full, sexy lips were slightly parted as he snored up the sleep gods. I spread the mouth of the 60-gallon bag out over the threshold between our bedroom and the master bathroom. The bags I wore crinkled and clung to me with every move as I approached him, lying on his back, with his head near the end of the bed and his feet propped up on the pillows at the head. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect position. I stood beside him, gazing down at his handsome face, slightly tilting my head as I squatted and angled the knife at his jugular. My hand was as steady as a surgeon's, though adrenaline raced through my veins like a Tasmanian devil. An eerie calm engulfed me as I watched the hypnotic rise and fall of his Adam's apple. He made a loud snort and brought out one hand to rub his nose, never even touching the knife. I almost laughed. One thing I wouldn't miss was his loud as hell snoring, even though I rarely had a chance to sleep when he did anymore. I really wanted to stab him mercilessly, cut his penis off and shove it down his throat, but I couldn't. Not at the risk of him overpowering me or accidentally cutting myself in the frenzy and leaving DNA that couldn't be explained. No, as much as I wanted him to suffer, I had to be methodical and clean. You never should have broken your vows, I growled in his ear sinisterly. I hope it was worth it. He shifted his head towards my voice then. There was movement under his lids, but he didn't open his eyes. What? He garbled. His shifty, slight eyes caused me to reposition the knife I held in my right hand. The pressure of the metal against the flesh must have alarmed him, even in his sleep, because his eyes fluttered open at the same time he was raising a hand to investigate. I loved you, I told him, ripping the blade deeply and slickly across his throat, causing it to unzip his neck into a V-shaped window of his esophagus. His eyes bucked open in confusion as blood gushed thickly in spurts onto my plastic-covered face, his chest, and everything else in range. Michael wrenched forward with his hands clasping his throat and gurgled indistinguishable words while gasping for oxygen. My heart beat with excitement as I stood to my full height, dropping the knife and watching in awe as his rubbery legs betrayed his attempt to stand, sending him to the floor. I leaned forward on my tippy toes since the bed now obstructed my view of him, then maneuvered around it instead. He labored towards the door, crawling on his elbows and knees, while blood oozed between his fingers and gurgled from his throat like a babbling brook. The sight gave me butterflies. Something about watching him suffer relieved a lot of anger I always felt balling up in the pit of my stomach that yoga had never been able to relieve. The macabre look on his blood-covered face made me think of the creepy thing that crawled out of the well in that horror movie, The Ring. His head bobbed so much, I thought it might actually rip off of his neck, had his hands not been the glue to keep it together. He feebly fell forward onto his face, slowly writhing on the carpet and turning blue as his eyes rolled wildly around their sockets. I've never seen anyone die before in person, but this was rather exhilarating. Who knew? Abruptly, his flailing stopped. His body lay still with both hands still grasping the wound as blood dribbled in a pool beneath him. I sighed, happy he hadn't made much headway towards the door. I didn't want to have to play hopscotch around any more blood spots than I absolutely had to. His eyes were fascinatingly lodged upwards into a dead man's stare that was fixated on nothingness. A satisfied smile played on my lips beneath the blood-soaked garbage bags. The more I looked, the more I wanted to keep looking. Sadly, I had to get my butt in gear because time was of the essence. Hustling, I turned on the shower in the master bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, rinsing blood from my hands and leaning in to allow the water to wash the rest from me. I used the same towel Marlene used to dry off and rested it on the sink as I stood in the bag across the entry. Quickly, I removed everything I wore except one layer of gloves and let them fall inside the bag, then stepped outside of it. Naked, I knotted the bag and scooped it and the towel up in one hand and stepped around my handiwork in the room. Resting my sack on a clear area of the bed, I carefully picked up the knife, holding the blade with one end of the towel and rubbed the handle clean with the other. Lifting clothes from the hamper by the door, I placed the towel and the knife inside, then buried them with the same clothes I pulled out. Slinging the bag over my shoulder like Santa Claus, I paused to study my husband's corpse a final time. His gaping neck had finally stopped flowing by then, and his body lay stiff in a darkening mass of blood. Stepping over his corpse, I exited the room humming the words to Pharrell's song Happy. And I was. It was time to head back to Daddy's. The end.
Wow. I'm losing. There you go. Wow. And why you was think when you was reading this, I was like, now is she walking out? Did she put on bigger shoes or the same size shoe? Because they're gonna be looking for shoe prints.
She has no shoes. She's naked. Remember, she came in with the garbage bags on. She was wrapped in garbage bags the whole time, so that anything would get on
So
that.
she didn't put nothing on her feet.
Right. She didn't put anything on anything, and she didn't step in any of the blood. That's why she was saying she was glad that he didn't make much headway to the door because she could walk around him. So she didn't step in any blood. She just walked on the carpet. She didn't put on, she was butt naked. Remember, all her clothes are downstairs folded up in the basement. So she had that planned out. So there's no footprints for them to look for because she didn't step in any blood.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
What has influenced you most as a writer?
I think true crime stories maybe because I always was interested in true crime. I read it from childhood and I read a lot of books about it. I watch a lot of TV shows about it. And I think it's just the fascination with why people do things that they do, good or bad.
What was the hardest part about writing that book?
Trying to make sure the facts are right. I'm very analytical, and I'm the type of person when I look at a movie, like I don't like to see discrepancies and things that don't make sense or things that couldn't be possible because I'll pick it apart. Like if somebody says somebody goes to jail for something and then they say they're innocent and they just let them out the same day. I'm like, nah, that's not possible. They don't let you out like that. You have to go through this process. So for me, with every book that I write, I try to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. I want it to be as realistic as possible, even though I do write about, a lot of murder and stuff like that. Some things I know from experience, not because I murdered anyone, but I did work at the police precinct for a while in the homicide division. I ask a lot of questions and I Google a lot of stuff. So for me, it's about making sure that my writing is very realistic.
Okay. What are your two favorite covers of all time, and can we see them?
Let's see. I would say What I Do for Love is one of my favorites, only because it just, I feel like it depicts exactly what I was thinking when I was writing this. Um, and I guess secondly would be When I'm Bad, I'm Better, because this was the first book cover that I made on my own. And so I was really proud of how I was able to put the ideas of what I wanted the girls to look like. There are twins in it. And how I described each character in the book, I was able to bring those characters to life. So I like my covers to really reflect what they're going to see when they're in the book. And so I was really proud of this one when I made it.
Okay. How did you come up with your characters' names?
Some are just because they're names that I like. Like I keep a list. I keep a list of names for characters, names for books, names of places. I just have like a whole running list. So whenever I'm gonna write a book, I just pull from those. And sometimes the names have to do with the type of person they are. So I try to make names that make me think that this person is like that. And Greer Patterson is the name of the character in What I Do for Love. And I felt like Greer sounds very unthreatening. And she shows that outwardly. No one would ever believe that she would be the type of person to do the things she does. And I feel like when people hear Greer, they're like, meh, it's like it's just like a regular name. You don't think she'd do anything, but she's probably the scariest person you've ever met.
What inspired you to write these books?
Different things. The first book I put out, I was writing for like almost 10 years. And I only put it out because my now husband, then boyfriend, was like, you turning 40, don't you have a book like you never put out? And I was trying to do a bunch of things I hadn't accomplished at that time. And so I put that one out. But I come up with ideas based on random things sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I want to write about that. Might see a Facebook question and it might spark an idea of what I could do with that and what kind of characters I would make.
What did you learn when writing the books?
I think with every book I've grown, because my first book I didn't write for an audience. I was just writing because I like to write. But as I've become more popular as an author and I've got more readership, I think I've become more critical about what I write. Is maybe why it's taken me so long to put out this last book, because I care about what people are thinking of it, and I scrutinize my ideas and how things are going to come across. So I think, it just depends on what the book is, but that's mainly the most difficult part for me, is trying to make sure that I'm putting out something that I'm proud of and that I feel like the majority, at least, of my readership will be happy with. Because you're never going to have 100% everybody's happy. Some people aren't going to like it no matter what you do. And if you're going to have a thin skin about that, you probably don't want to put out anything for public consumption.
What is more important, character or plot?
I think plot, because you can have awesome characters, but if they're not going anywhere, or there's no end to that, then it's nothing. The book will fall short. I've read plenty of books where I actually like the characters, but the ending was anticlimactic. Like I was waiting for something to happen the whole book, and I'm like, well, what's the book really about? Like they didn't really do anything. So you can have awesome characters, but they have to have a story.
Yes. How did you begin writing, and did you intend to become a writer, or did you have a specific reason for writing each book?
Well, I was writing since childhood. I was on punishment a lot because I didn't follow the rules. So they were like, can't go outside, can't watch TV. So all I could do was read. I would read, and then I would write, and I would draw. Those are the three things that I would do. They were fun to me. And so it became where even when I wasn't on punishment, I would still write or still read or still draw. Um, and I was doing it pretty much all my life. And when I put out my first book, I really just put it out because I wanted my friends and family to be able to read it. I had no intentions on becoming like an author or having mass people read it. I didn't even know that they could. At the time, I put it out in 2012. I didn't even know that Amazon was the huge book mogul that they are. I had never read an ebook before, so I didn't know they existed. Um, I was trying to find a way to put a PDF on Facebook and I couldn't figure it out. And when I Googled it, I found out that I could upload it to Amazon and put it out. So I knew like eBay. That's what I thought. Amazon was like eBay to me. So I was like, okay. And it wouldn't let me do it for free. So it was 99 cents was the cheapest I could make it. And being that it was just a regular book. It was unedited because I just thought my friends were going to read it. So it wasn't really edited well. It wasn't even finished. I had a cliffhanger, but it was only because I just didn't finish reading it. I finished writing it. It wasn't intentional. But when I put it out, I went to Spelman. So a lot of my Spelman and Morehouse friends must have flooded Amazon and my relatives and stuff. And before I knew it, it was reaching number one. And I didn't realize that because it was a new release, regular readers would read it just because it was a new release. Yes. And also because it's called Behind Closed Doors, which I didn't at the time think about the fact that 2 gazillion books probably have that name. So I don't know if maybe some people stumbled across it, but it started getting great reviews. Strangers were reading it. People I didn't know were asking me to do interviews. And other than people pointing out that it wasn't edited well, I was like, oh snap, other people are reading it. So I took it down and then edited it because I, at the time, didn't realize everyone would do it. But after that, and people wanting to know what happened, it just validated a talent that I didn't realize I really had. I started researching it, and then from then on, I just started putting out more books, and I've gotten a lot of good readership, which to me validates that. I mean, I might not be the best writer ever, but I've been nominated for a couple of author awards, and so it makes me feel like I'm at least progressing well every year.
Okay. And how can readers get in touch with you and purchase your books?
I have a website. It's kfjohnsonbooks.com. And on that website, there are links to everything, to Amazon, to Audible. All my books are also an audiobook. So there are links to the Amazon website, to Audible. You can purchase paperbacks on my website and get autographed copies. And there is a discount code, Corona, which if you put that discount code in, you get free shipping. And if you go on my website, you can get links to anything. All of my social media links are up there. I'm on Facebook as KF Johnson Author, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on everything. And so all of them are some form of KF Johnson Author. But again, if you go to my website, kfjohnsonbooks.com, you can see all those links. You can read more about me. You can schedule book club meetings. I do book club meetings, and I also do online book club meetings, especially during, this quarantine time. So if you have 5 members or more, I have done some online book club meetings before too.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you would like to say before we close?
Sure. Friend me on Facebook. Every morning I put up a author HQ, which is a hypothetical question. And it's just a way really for people to get to know each other and to engage on my page. Some are fun questions. Some are, serious questions. But for the most part, it's just a way for people to talk to each other, get to know each other. You'll get to know a little bit about me, and I get to know a little bit about you. And then when new releases come out, you'll already be aware. So You know, if you get a chance, friend me on Facebook, friend me on Instagram, KF Johnson Author. And, you know, hopefully someone will discover me as a new author if you haven't already read some of my books.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.